She stole from the most dangerous man in the city to save her dying son. When he tracked her down, gun drawn and fury in his eyes, she shielded the boy behind her and waited for the end. But when their eyes met, the Mafia boss went completely silent because the child had his face. The champagne glasses caught the light like diamonds. Clara Rossi kept her head down, weaving through clusters of Manhattan's elite with a tray of hors d'oeuvres balanced on her palm. Her feet screamed in the borrowed heels. This was her third shift today: diner breakfast, retail afternoon, and now this glittering charity gala at the Meridian Hotel. "Excuse me, miss?" A woman in pearls snapped her fingers. "These are cold." Clara forced a smile. "I'll get you fresh ones right away, ma'am." As she turned, her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. She already knew what it was. Another text from Mount Sinai Hospital. Payment overdue. Leo's surgery date pending. Her son's face flashed through her mind. Those big brown eyes, the way he tried to smile through the pain. 8 years old and fighting a heart that was giving up on him. The surgery cost more than she'd make in 5 years. The insurance company had denied the claim twice. Some clause about pre-existing conditions. Clara blinked back tears and pushed through the kitchen doors. She had exactly $400 in her bank account. The surgery needed $50,000 as a down payment. In 6 days. "Clara." The catering manager grabbed her arm. "Table 12 needs service. Move." She grabbed a fresh tray of crab cakes and headed back into the ballroom. A jazz quartet played something smooth and expensive. Women draped in silk laughed at jokes that probably weren't funny. Men in tailored suits discussed stock portfolios and vacation homes. And then she saw him. Victor Morelli stood near the bar, surrounded by men in dark suits who looked like they'd break bones for fun. Everyone knew his name. Everyone knew what he was. The papers called him a businessman, but the streets called him something else. He owned half of Lower Manhattan: restaurants, shipping companies, construction firms. All of it clean on paper. All of it dirty underneath. He was younger than she expected, maybe early 40s, with sharp cheekbones and eyes that seemed to calculate everything they saw. A scar traced his left jawline, barely visible, but impossible to miss once you noticed it. Clara looked away quickly. People like him didn't notice people like her. She was serving table 9 when it happened. A woman in a red dress stood up too fast, her elbow catching Clara's tray. Crab cakes launched into the air. Clara stumbled backward, straight into something solid. Strong hands caught her shoulders. "Easy there." Victor Morelli's voice was quieter than she expected. Almost gentle. "I'm so sorry, sir." "I'm so sorry." Clara's face burned. She could feel every eye in the room on her. "It's fine." He steadied the tray in her hands. His fingers were covered in silver rings, one with a family crest, another with a black stone. No harm done. For just a second, their eyes met. His were gray, storm-colored, calculating. But something flickered there, something almost human. That's when Clara saw it. His suit jacket had fallen open when he caught her. A black leather wallet, stuffed thick, pressing against the inside pocket. The edge of what looked like a credit card gleamed gold. Her heart hammered. The thought came fast and ugly. That wallet could save Leo. She knew it was wrong. She knew it was criminal. But the text message from the hospital burned in her pocket like a brand. "Surgery date pending." "Thank you, sir." Her voice came out steady somehow. Professional. As Victor turned back to his associates, Clara let her hand drift. Just for a second. A brush against his jacket. Fingers closing around leather. The wallet slipped into her apron so smoothly it felt like someone else was doing it. She walked away, legs shaking, lungs tight. What have I done? The next hour passed in a blur. Clara served drinks with a smile plastered on her face, while her mind screamed. She'd stolen from Victor Morelli.
Victor Morelli.
The man who supposedly had a judge murdered for dismissing a case. The man who controlled the docks, the unions, the underground poker rings. She was dead. She was so dead.
But Leo.
Leo's face. his small hand in hers during the last hospital visit, when the doctor said they were running out of time. At 10:30, the lights flickered.
Once. Twice.
Then the doors burst open. NYP. Nobody move. Chaos exploded. Women screamed.
Men rushed for exits.
Someone knocked over a champagne tower. Glass shattered like gunfire across marble floors. Clara froze, tray clutched to her chest. Officers poured in, guns drawn, shouting commands. She saw Victor across the room, perfectly calm while his associates scattered. He looked annoyed more than worried. This was her chance. Maybe her only chance. Clara ditched the tray and ran. She dodged through the kitchen, past shouting chefs and panicked servers. Out the service exit. Down 3 flights of stairs. Her lungs burned. The wallet felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in her apron. She hit the street and kept running. Past the Meridian's golden awnings. Past confused doormen and idling taxis. Into the subway station on Lexington. She jumped a turnstile, added that crime to the list, and caught the 6th train just as the doors closed. Only when the train pulled away, watching the platform disappear into darkness, did Clara let herself breathe. She reached into her apron with trembling hands. The wallet was real. Heavy black leather, worn at the edges. Expensive. She opened it slowly, almost afraid to look.
Cash.
Hundreds and hundreds of dollars in crisp bills. At least 3,000, maybe more. Credit cards with Victor Morelli's name embossed in gold. A photo of a woman Clara didn't recognize, dark-haired, beautiful, smiling at whoever held the camera. And something else. A small flash drive, silver and unmarked, tucked behind the bills. Clara's hands shook harder. This was really happening. She didn't know that by morning, every criminal in the 5 boroughs would be looking for the waitress in the red apron. She didn't know that the flash drive in her possession could topple empires. All she knew was that tomorrow, she could finally take her son to a real doctor. And for tonight, that was enough. Victor Morelli stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, watching the city lights blur into constellations below. The police raid had been a joke, a new district attorney trying to make headlines. His lawyers had him out in 40 minutes. Just another Tuesday night. He loosened his tie and reached for his phone to call his attorney. His hand went to his inside pocket. Empty.
Victor Froned.
He checked his other pockets. Nothing. He scanned the marble entryway where he'd tossed his keys. Not there either.
Marco.
His voice cut through the silence. His bodyguard appeared from the security room, built like a bulldozer in an expensive suit. Boss. My wallet. Did I leave in the car? I'll check, Marco spoke into his radio. A rapid exchange with the driver downstairs. He looked back at Victor, shaking his head. Not in the car, boss. You sure you had it at the gala? Victor's jaw tightened. He always had it. The wallet was custom leather, made in Milan, a gift from his father before the old man died. But more than sentimentality, it held. His blood went cold. The drive, he said quietly. The flash drive was in there. Marco's face drained of color. The offshore accounts. Everything. Victor's voice was deadly calm now, the way it always got before violence. Every shell corporation. Every politician on the payroll. Every judge. Every cop. Every wire transfer for the last 5 years. All of it on that drive. Jesus Christ, Marco ran a hand over his face. Could you have dropped it during the raid? I don't drop things. Victor moved to his desk, his mind working through the evening frame by frame. The speeches. The donations. The tedious conversations with society wives who wanted to feel dangerous by talking to him. Then, the girl. The waitress who'd stumbled into him. Dark hair pulled back. Tired eyes. Cheap shoes. He'd caught her, steadied the tray. She'd apologized profusely. And then she'd walked away. The security footage, Victor said. From the Meridian. Pull everything from the last 3 hours. Marco was already moving. I'll call our guy there. While Marco worked his phone, Victor poured himself 2 fingers of scotch. His hand was steady, but inside his chest, something he hadn't felt in years was beginning to coil. Fear. That flash drive was supposed to be insurance.
Mutually assured destruction.
If anyone ever moved against him, he'd release it all. Judges would go to prison. Senators would resign. Half the NYPD would be indicted. The city's power structure would collapse. But if it fell into the wrong hands, if someone sold it to the FBI or leaked it to the press, he wouldn't just lose his empire. He'd spend the rest of his life in a maximum security cell. If he even made it to trial, there were a dozen powerful men on that drive who'd rather see him dead than talking. Got it, Marco said, looking up from his laptop. Footage is coming through now. They watched in silence as the gala played out in black and white. Victor fast-forwarded through arrivals, through dinner service, through his own conversations with the mayor's chief of staff. Then he slowed the footage.
There.
10:17 p.m. The woman in the red dress standing up. The collision. The waitress stumbling backward into him. Freeze it, Victor said. Marco paused the image. The waitress's face was partially visible, young, maybe late 20s, exhausted. But there was something else there too. A sharpness in her eyes. A calculation. Run it again. Slower. They watched frame by frame. Victor catching her shoulders. The tray steadying. Her thanking him. And there, so quick he'd nearly missed it, her hand drifting to his jacket. A practiced movement. Professional almost. She played me, Victor said softly. Something like admiration colored his voice before anger crushed it. Run facial recognition. I want her name, address, phone number, and everyone she's ever known. 30 minutes. On it, Marco made 3 calls in rapid succession, mobilizing the network. Ex-cops on Victor's payroll. Tech guys who could hack anything. Street soldiers who knew how to find people who didn't want to be found. Victor returned to the window, sipping his scotch. The city sprawled before him, his city. Every building, every street corner, every shadow. He'd built this empire from nothing. His father had run numbers and protection rackets. Victor had turned it into something sophisticated.
Clean.
Untouchable. Until tonight. He thought about the waitress's face. The tiredness in her eyes. She hadn't looked like a professional thief. She'd looked desperate, which made her either very stupid or very motivated. Boss, Marco's voice was tight. Got her. Victor turned from the window. Clara Rossi. 29 years old. Lives in Brooklyn. Works 3 jobs, diner, retail, and catering. No criminal record. Not even a parking ticket. Marco scrolled through the information. But here's the interesting part. Single mother. 1 kid. 8-year-old boy named Leo. Medical bills. Mountains of them. Kid's got a heart condition. Needs surgery. The hospital's been chasing her for payment. Marco looked up. She's broke, boss. Completely tapped out. Victor was quiet for a long moment. So the waitress was a mother. A desperate mother who'd seen an opportunity and taken it. She probably thought the wallet just had cash. She had no idea what else she'd stolen. A dress, Victor said. Marco rattled off a street in a rundown part of Brooklyn. The kind of neighborhood where people minded their business and didn't call the cops. Send a team. I want her brought in alive. No mess, no attention. Just bring her to me. What about the kid? Victor's jaw tightened. He thought of the photo in his wallet, Lucia, laughing in the sunlight. That was a different life. A different version of himself. Leave the kid out of it. This is between me and her. Marco nodded and left to organize the pickup. Victor remained at the window, watching the city that was about to become very dangerous for one desperate waitress. She'd stolen from him. Worse, she'd stolen the one thing that could destroy everything he'd built. He should be furious. He should be planning her death. But something nagged at him. That exhausted face. Those calculating eyes. The mention of a sick child. He pushed the thought away. Sentiment was a luxury he couldn't afford. By morning, Clara Rossi would be sitting across from him. and she would tell him exactly where his flash drive was. Or she'd learn why people in this city were afraid to even speak his name. Clara's hands shook so badly she could barely get the key in the lock. The hallway of her apartment building smelled like mildew and someone's burned dinner. A fluorescent light flickered overhead, casting stuttering shadows on peeling wallpaper. She finally got the door open and stumbled inside, slamming it behind her. Her heart was still racing from the subway ride, every stop feeling like an eternity. Every face that looked her way felt like an accusation.
Mana.
The small voice cut through her panic. Clara dropped her bag and rushed to the bedroom. Leo was sitting up in bed, his SpongeBob sheets tangled around his thin legs. His face was pale, dark circles under eyes that looked too big for his small face. He'd been sleeping when she left for the gala. She'd hoped he'd sleep through the night. Hey, baby, Clara sat on the edge of his bed, smoothing his dark hair back. Why are you awake? My chest hurts again, his voice was so small. It feels tight. Clara's heart shattered. She pulled him close, feeling how fragile he was in her arms. When had he gotten so thin? I know, sweetheart. I know. But Mama's going to fix it. I promise. She held him until his breathing evened out, until he fell back asleep against her shoulder. Then she gently laid him down, tucking the blankets around him. She pressed a kiss to his forehead. His skin was too warm. In the kitchen, Clara leaned against the counter and finally let herself look at what she'd done. The wallet sat on the chipped formica like a coiled snake. Black leather. Expensive. Damning. Her apartment was a studio with a curtain separating Leo's bed from the rest of the space. The paint was peeling. The radiator clanked. The window faced a brick wall. But it was home. It was safe.
It was all she could afford. Until now.
Clara opened the wallet with trembling fingers. She counted the cash slowly. $3,200. More money than she'd seen in one place in years. With her catering pay from tonight, she'd have almost $4,000 total. It still wasn't enough for the surgery down payment. But it was enough to get Leo into a better hospital. Enough to see a real specialist. Enough to buy time. She looked at the credit cards. Victor Morelli's name glinted in the streetlight coming through the window. She couldn't use those. That would be traceable. Stupid. The photo caught her eye again. The beautiful dark-haired woman, frozen in a moment of joy. Who was she? A wife? A girlfriend? The frame was worn at the edges like Victor looked at it often. Clara felt a stab of guilt. She'd stolen someone's wallet. Someone's money. Not just anyone, a dangerous man. A criminal. But still. The woman in the photo looked kind.
Happy.
Stop it, Clara told herself. He's a mobster. He's probably killed people. This money is probably dirty anyway. But her hands still shook as she set the photo aside. The flash drive rolled out from between the bills.
Small.
Silver. Unmarked. Clara picked it up, turning it over in her fingers. What was on it? Business files? Tax documents? Rich people kept everything digital now. She thought about plugging it into her ancient laptop, but exhaustion crashed over her like a wave. It didn't matter what was on it. Some corporate thing. She'd throw it away tomorrow. Clara walked to the corner where the floorboard was loose, the spot where she hid her emergency cash, all $60 of it. She pried it up and placed the wallet inside, covering it again. Then she stacked Leo's toy box over it. Hidden. Safe.
For now.
She stood and looked around the apartment. Medical bills were stacked on the counter. Dozens of them, all stamped with red past due notices. The Mount Sinai letterhead on top. The children's hospital statements beneath. The specialist bills. The pharmacy receipts for Leo's medications that barely helped anymore. 6 months ago, Leo had been a normal kid, playing soccer, laughing, running. Then he'd collapsed during gym class. The school had called an ambulance. The diagnosis came swift and brutal, congenital heart defect. Worsening rapidly. Surgery required. The insurance company sent a letter 2 weeks later. Claim denied. Pre-existing condition. Never mind that Leo had been fine his whole life. Never mind that he was 8 years old. Clara had appealed. Hired a lawyer she couldn't afford, who couldn't help. Taken on a third job. Sold everything she owned that had any value. Her mother's jewelry. Her car. The TV. Everything. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Until tonight. She walked back to Leo's bedside and watched him sleep. His chest rose and fell in shallow movements. Sometimes he made little gasping sounds that terrified her. The doctors said he had weeks, maybe a month, before the defect became critical. "Tomorrow, baby," Clara whispered, stroking his hair. "Tomorrow we get you help. Real help." She meant it. First thing in the morning, she'd take him to Manhattan pediatric specialists. She'd seen their commercials. They worked with families, payment plans, charity cases. They'd have to help. They had to. Clara pulled the thin blanket from the couch and wrapped it around herself, settling into the chair next to Leo's bed. She couldn't sleep. Every sound from the hallway made her jump. Every car door slamming outside felt like Victor Morelli coming for her. But he didn't know who she was. Right? The gala had been chaos. The police raid. The darkness. Hundreds of people. She was just one waitress in a red apron. She was safe. "Please let us be safe." Outside, 3 blocks away, a black SUV pulled to a stop. Marco checked the address on his phone, then looked up at Clara's building. He radioed the team. "Target location confirmed. Everyone in position. We move at dawn."
Victor hadn't slept.
He stood in his underground office, a room that didn't officially exist, buried beneath one of his legitimate shipping warehouses in Red Hook. Concrete walls.
No windows.
A place where problems got solved. Marco entered with a tablet and 2 other men, Carlo and Dimitri. Both ex-military. Both loyal. Both comfortable with violence when needed. "We have everything," Marco said, pulling up the file. Clara Rossi. Born in Queens. Father unknown. Mother died when she was 16. Raised her younger sister Lucia until... He paused. "Until what?" Victor's voice was sharp. "Until Lucia died. 7 years ago. Car explosion in the Bronx." Something cold moved through Victor's chest. "Show me a picture of the sister." Marco swiped through the file and turned the tablet around. Victor's world tilted. Dark hair. Dark eyes. High cheekbones. The same smile from the photo in his wallet. The same woman who'd haunted his dreams for 7 years. Lucia Rossi. "Boss." Marco's voice seemed to come from far away. "You okay?" Victor's hand gripped the edge of his desk. Lucia. Sweet, stubborn Lucia who'd gotten too close to his world. Who'd seen too much. Who'd refused to run when he'd begged her to. The explosion hadn't been random. His rivals had planted the bomb, meant for him. She'd been collateral damage. Wrong place, wrong time. He'd mourned her in private, kept her photo, never spoke her name aloud. And now her sister had stolen from him. The universe had a vicious sense of humor.
"Boss. Marco Prest."
"Did you know her?" "Continue the briefing," Victor said coldly, his face a mask. Marco exchanged glances with Carlo but kept going. "Clara's clean. No record. Works at Mike's Diner in Brooklyn, part-time at a clothing store in Manhattan, and picks up catering gigs through an agency. Single mother. The kid, Leo, is 8 years old. Father's name isn't on the birth certificate." Victor did the math. 8 years old. Lucia died 7 years ago, which meant... "The boy is hers," he said quietly.
Lucia est son.
"What?" Marco looked confused. "Nothing. What else?" "Medical records show the kid's got a serious heart condition. Doctors say he needs surgery within weeks. The bills are," Marco whistled, "substantial. Clara's drowning in debt. That's probably why she took the wallet." Victor studied the surveillance photo of Clara from the gala. now that he knew he could see it. The resemblance to Lucia around the eyes. The same defiant tilt of the chin. But where Lucia had been fire and laughter, Clara looked exhausted.
Desperate.
Current location? Victor asked. Apartment in Brooklyn. East New York. Bad neighborhood. We've had eyes on the building since midnight. She went straight home from the gala. Hasn't left. The kid's with her. Good, Victor straightened. I'm going personally. Marco's eyebrows shot up. Boss, that's not necessary. We can bring her here. I'm going, Victor repeated, his tone leaving no room for argument. You three come with me. No weapons. We go in quiet. I want to talk to her first. And if she doesn't cooperate, Victor pulled on his coat. She will. They took 2 cars, a black Mercedes and an SUV for backup. The drive to Brooklyn felt longer than it was. Victor watched the city change through the window. Manhattan's glittering towers giving way to Brooklyn's mix of old brownstones and industrial blocks, then finally to the rougher neighborhoods where people survived instead of lived. Clara's building was a 5-story walk-up that had seen better decades. Graffiti tagged the entrance. The security door hung loose on its hinges.
Classi, Carlo Matterd.
They climbed to the 3rd floor. The hallway was narrow and dim. Victor could hear a television through one door, a baby crying through another. Normal people living normal lives. People who didn't know that one of the most dangerous men in New York was walking past their doors. Marco checked his phone. 3rd door on the right. Victor stood before apartment 3C. Behind this door was Lucia's sister. Lucia's nephew. A sick child who needed money for surgery. A desperate woman who'd stolen the one thing that could destroy him. He should be furious. He should kick down the door and terrify her into giving back the flash drive. That's what the old Victor would have done. That's what Marco expected. But all he could think about was Lucia. Her laugh. The way she'd look at him like he was more than just a monster in an expensive suit. The way she died because of him. And now her sister was raising her son. Alone.
Broke.
Desperate enough to steal from a mobster. Boss. Marco's hand hovered near the door. Ready. Victor pulled out his phone instead. He dialed a number. Inside the apartment, a phone rang. They heard movement. Footsteps. A woman's voice, groggy and frightened. Hello. Victor kept his voice calm. Professional. Ms. Rossi. My name is Victor Morelli. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Silence. Then a sharp intake of breath. I'm standing outside your door right now, Victor continued. I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to talk. I'm going to hang up now. I'd appreciate it if you'd open the door. He ended the call. For a long moment, nothing happened. Victor could imagine her on the other side, panicking, weighing options, thinking about running. But there was nowhere to run. Not really. The lock clicked. The chain rattled. The door opened a crack. Clara Rossi stood there in yesterday's clothes, her dark hair messy, her eyes wide with terror. But there was something else there too. The same stubborn defiance he'd seen in Lucia. Behind her, he could hear a child coughing. Weak, painful sounds. Their eyes met. Victor saw the moment she recognized him.
Saw the fear spike.
Saw her instinctively move to block the doorway, protecting her son, even though she knew it was hopeless. Ms. Rossi, Victor said quietly. We need to talk about that wallet. Clara's legs nearly gave out.
Victor Morelli.
In her hallway. At her door. This couldn't be happening. Please, she whispered. Please, my son is sick. I needed. I know about your son. Victor's voice was surprisingly calm. Not angry. Not threatening. Almost. Gentle? May I come in? Every instinct screamed at her to slam the door. But what would that accomplish? He'd found her. This was always going to happen. She'd stolen from a man who owned half of New York City. Clara stepped back, opening the door wider. Victor entered, followed by 3 large men who made her tiny apartment feel even smaller. Their eyes swept the space, cataloging exits, threats, Details. Professional. Terrifying.
Nga.
Leo's voice came from the bedroom area. Who's there? It's okay, baby. Stay in bed, Clara's voice cracked. She turned to Victor, keeping herself between him and her son. Whatever you're going to do to me, please. Just let me call my neighbor first. She can take Leo. He doesn't need to see. I'm not going to hurt you, Victor interrupted. He glanced toward where Leo was coughing again. Or him. Then what do you want? My wallet. And the flash drive that was inside it. Clara's stomach dropped. The flash drive. She'd barely looked at it. I don't know what's on it. I didn't look.
I swear.
I just needed the money for
his surgery.
I know. Victor moved to her kitchen table, gesturing for her to sit. Sit down, Ms. Rossi. Please. It felt surreal. A mafia boss saying please in her kitchen. Clara sat because her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. Victor remained standing. The flash drive contains sensitive business information. I need it back. Now, you can either tell me where it is, or my associates can search your apartment. I'd prefer to keep this civil. Under the floorboard, Clara said immediately. By the toy box. I'll get it. She moved to retrieve the wallet, hyper-aware of the men watching her every move. She pried up the loose board and pulled out the leather wallet, handing it to Victor with shaking hands. He opened it, checking the contents. The cash was still there. The credit cards. The photo of Lucia, he lingered on that for just a second. And the flash drive. Everything accounted for. Thank you, Victor said, pocketing the drive. Then he pulled out the stack of cash. This is $3,200. You need it for your son's medical bills. It wasn't a question.
Clara couldn't speak.
She just nodded. Victor set the cash on the table between them. Keep it. What? Clara's voice came out as a whisper.
Keep it.
Consider it a gift. Victor's gray eyes studied her face. But I need to understand something. You knew who I was. You had to. Everyone in this city knows my name. And yet you stole from me anyway.
Why?
Clara looked at the cash, then at the curtain hiding Leo's bed, then back at Victor. Because my son is dying. And I've tried everything else. Every legal option. Every payment plan. Every charity. Every loan. Nothing worked. The hospital won't schedule his surgery without a deposit. So when I saw that wallet, her voice broke. I knew it was wrong. I knew it was dangerous. But I thought maybe I could disappear before you noticed. I thought maybe I could save him. Silence filled the apartment. Even Leo's coughing had quieted. How long does he have? Victor asked. The doctors said weeks. Maybe a month. Tears streamed down Clara's face now. His heart is failing. Every day, he gets weaker. Every day I watch him struggle to breathe, and I can't fix it. I can't save him. What kind of mother can't save her own child? Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, What hospital? What? Which hospital denied him treatment? Mount Sinai. But I'm trying to get him into Manhattan Pediatric today. With this money, I can. Manhattan Pediatric is garbage, Victor said flatly. Overpriced and understaffed. You need Columbia Presbyterian. Dr. Sarah Chen. She's the best pediatric cardiac surgeon on the East Coast. Clara stared at him, confused. I can't afford Columbia Presbyterian. Even with this money, I can't. You're taking him today, Victor interrupted.
Right now.
My driver will take you. He pulled out his phone, making a call. Dr. Chen?
Victor Morelli.
I'm sending a patient to you. 8-year-old boy. Congenital heart defect. Needs immediate surgery. A pause. Yes, I understand your schedule is full. Make room. Another pause.
Thank you, Sarah.
I'll owe you 1 inch. He ended the call and looked at Clara's shocked face. Get your son ready. Dr. Chen will see him in an hour. I don't understand. Clara's mind was reeling. Why would you help us? I stole from you. Victor stood, buttoning his coat. Because I can. And because he stopped himself. Just get him ready. But the cost? The surgery could be $100,000. I can't possibly. It's handled. Victor headed for the door, his men following. He paused at the threshold, looking back. Ms. Rossi? The flash drive you took. If anyone had copied it, if anyone had seen what was on it, I would have no choice but to eliminate the threat. Do you understand what I'm saying? Clara nodded, fear flooding back. But I believe you. You didn't look. You were just trying to save your son. His expression softened almost imperceptibly. I respect that. A parent's love is
Rare.
valuable. Thank you, Clara whispered. I don't know how to repay. You can't, Victor said simply. Just take care of that boy. He left, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. Clara sat frozen, staring at the cash on her table. None of this made sense. Victor Morelli, the most feared man in New York, had just given her money and arranged surgery for Leo.
Why?
She looked at Leo, who was peeking out from behind the curtain, confused and frightened.
Mama?
What just happened? Clara pulled him into her arms, holding him tight. I think we just got a miracle, baby.
Come on.
We're going to see a doctor. Victor sat in the back of the Mercedes as it crawled through morning traffic. He hadn't said a word since leaving Clara's apartment. Marco kept glancing at him in the rearview mirror, clearly confused but smart enough to stay quiet. The flash drive burned in Victor's pocket. He should feel relieved. The threat was contained. His empire was safe. Everything could go back to normal. But nothing felt normal. Take me to the office, Victor said finally. I need to review something. 20 minutes later, they were back in the underground office. Victor dismissed everyone except Marco. He needed answers, and Marco was the only one he trusted with certain truths. Pull up everything on Clara Rossi again, Victor ordered. And this time I want details on the sister. Lucia. Everything. Marco's fingers flew across the keyboard. You knew her, didn't you, boss? Victor didn't answer. He didn't need to. Marco had been with him for 15 years. He'd seen Victor disappear some nights 7 years ago, come back smiling. Marco had seen him go dark after the explosion. Here's Lucia's file. Marco pulled it up on the large screen. Lucia Marie Rossi. Died 7 years ago in the Bronx.
Car bomb.
She was 22. Victor stared at her photo. God, she'd been beautiful. Full of life. She'd worked at a bookstore in Greenwich Village. They'd met when he came in looking for a first-edition Hemingway for his father. She'd laughed at something he said, and that laugh had cracked something open in his chest. What was she doing in the Bronx that night? Victor asked quietly. Marco pulled up the police report. Says here she was visiting a friend. Left around 11 p.m. Got to her car, and he trailed off. Victor remembered that night like it was yesterday. He'd been in a meeting with the Castellano family, negotiating territory. The bomb had been meant for him, retaliation for a deal gone wrong. But his enemies had gotten the wrong car. The wrong person. Lucia had been using his spare car that week because hers was in the shop. He'd insisted. Told her it was safer, more reliable. He'd killed her. Not directly, but close enough. What about the child? Victor asked, his voice rough. When was he born? Marco checked the records. Leonardo Rossi. Born January 15th, 8 years ago. Mother listed as Lucia Rossi. Father unknown. Victor did the math. 8 years ago would mean Lucia was pregnant when she died. But the dates didn't match. Leo was born before the explosion, not after. Pull up a photo of the boy. Recent 1 inch.
Marco Gesetatith.
Boss, we don't have. Find one. Check social media. School records. Medical files. I don't care. Find me a picture. It took 10 minutes. Marco broke into Clara's old Facebook account, barely used, mostly just photos of Leo. Birthday parties. First day of school. Halloween costumes. Marco pulled up the most recent image. Leo at a park, smiling despite the dark circles under his eyes. Victor's world stopped. Those eyes. Dark brown with flecks of gold. The exact same unusual coloring as his own. The same high cheekbones. The same slight dimple in the chin that Victor had inherited from his father. Oh God, Victor breathed.
Boss.
Marco leaned closer to the screen, then looked at Victor, then back at the screen. His face went pale. Boss, is that my son? The words felt foreign in Victor's mouth. That's my son. The room spun. Victor gripped the edge of the desk, his mind racing through memories. 8 years ago. He and Lucia had been together for almost a year. Serious, or as serious as he could be while running a criminal empire. She'd been pushing for more, wanting him to leave the life, start over, be normal. They'd fought about it. He'd told her it was impossible. You didn't just walk away from the Mafia. She'd left his penthouse crying, saying she needed time to think. That was the last real conversation they'd had. She'd stopped returning his calls. Avoided him for weeks. He'd thought she'd finally wised up, realized he was too dangerous, too damaged. He'd never known she was pregnant. And then the bomb. The funeral he couldn't attend. The guilt that had eaten him alive for 7 years. She never told you, Marco said quietly. She must have found out after we fought. After she decided to leave, Victor's voice was hollow. She kept him secret to protect him.
From me.
From this life. And Clara's been raising him since Lucia died. Victor looked at the photo again. His son. His son was dying of a heart condition. His son was sleeping in a rundown apartment in Brooklyn. His son had been suffering while Victor lived in luxury, completely unaware. The surgery Dr. Chen is doing, Victor said. I want updates every hour. I want the best recovery care. Private room. Around-the-clock nurses. Whatever he needs. Of course, boss. But Marco's expression was conflicted. What are you going to do? About Clara. About the boy. I don't know. Victor pulled out his wallet, looking at Lucia's photo again. She was smiling, holding the camera herself, arm extended. He'd taken his own version of the same shot that day. They'd laughed about it. Had she already known? When this photo was taken, had she already been carrying his child? Run a DNA test, Victor said. Discreetly. Get a sample from the boy during the surgery prep. I need to be sure. And if it comes back positive. Victor stood, walking to the wall of windows that overlooked the warehouse floor. His empire, built on violence and fear and blood money. Everything Lucia had hated. Everything she'd wanted him to leave behind. She'd given up her life to keep their son away from this world. And now Clara was doing the same, working 3 jobs, drowning in debt, desperate enough to steal from a mobster. Both sisters sacrificing everything to protect the boy. If it's positive, Victor said slowly, then everything changes. Boss, think about this carefully. If word gets out that you have a son, your enemies will target him. The kid's been safe all these years because nobody knew. If you claim him now, I know the risks. Victor's jaw tightened. But I can't just walk away.
Not now.
Not knowing. So, what's the plan? Victor turned from the window. First, we make sure he survives the surgery. Then he paused, uncertainty flickering across his face, an expression Marco had never seen before. Then I figure out how to tell Clara that I'm not just the man she stole from. I'm Leo's father. Clara had never seen a hospital like this. Columbia Presbyterian was all gleaming floors and quiet efficiency. No overcrowded waiting rooms. No 3-hour delays. Dr. Chen had examined Leo immediately, ordered tests, and scheduled surgery for the next morning. It's aggressive, Dr. Chen had said, but necessary. His heart is weaker than I'd like. We need to move fast. Now it was midnight, and Leo was sleeping in a private room that looked more like a hotel than a hospital. Clara sat by his bed, watching his chest rise and fall with the help of monitors and IVs. The surgery was in 8 hours.
She should feel relieved.
Grateful. But all she felt was suspicious. Victor Morelli didn't do charity. Men like him didn't help waitresses out of kindness. There had to be an angle. A reason. Something he wanted beyond just his flash drive back. The way he'd looked at her, like he was seeing a ghost. The way he'd paused at Lucia's photo. The careful questions about Leo. Clara's stomach churned. She pulled out her phone, and did something she should have done years ago. She searched Victor Morelli relationship history. The results were sparse. A few society page photos with various women at galas. Nothing serious. Nothing recent. But then she found an older article from 8 years ago, a gossip column mentioning mysterious absences and speculation about Victor's personal life becoming surprisingly domestic. 8 years ago, when Lucia had been alive. Clara's hands shook as she searched deeper. She found nothing concrete, but the timing. The way Victor had looked at Lucia's photo.
No, it couldn't be.
Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her heart seized. Hello. Ms. Rossi. It's Victor Morelli. I need to speak with you. Tonight. It's midnight. My son is sleeping and well protected. I have 2 of my men stationed outside his room. No one will harm him. Victor's voice was tense. There's something you need to know. Something about your sister. Clara's blood went cold. What about Lucia? Not over the phone. There's an unused wing of the hospital, floor 7. Room 712. Come alone. The line went dead. Clara looked at Leo, peaceful in sleep for the first time in weeks. The monitors beeped steadily. A nurse sat just outside the door. He was safe here. Safer than he'd ever been. She had to know. Floor 7 was dark and quiet, still under renovation. Clara's footsteps echoed on unfinished floors. Room 712 was at the end of the hallway, a bare space with paint tarps and equipment. Victor stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. His bodyguard, Marco, stood by the door. When Clara entered, Marco stepped outside, closing the door behind him. You wanted to talk about Lucia, Clara said, her voice harder than she felt. Talk. Victor turned to face her. In the dim light, he looked tired, almost vulnerable. How much did your sister tell you about her life? About who she was seeing before she died? Not much. Lucia was private. She'd moved out by then, had her own place in the village. We'd grown apart a bit. Clara's throat tightened. She'd call sometimes, but she was always vague about her personal life. Said she was seeing someone, but it was complicated. It was me. The words hung in the air like smoke. Clara felt the world tilt. What? Your sister and I were together for almost a year. I loved her. Victor's voice cracked slightly on the last word. She wanted me to leave this life. I told her I couldn't. We fought. She left. And then. The bomb. Clara's voice was a whisper. The bomb was meant for you. Yes. Rage flooded through Clara so fast she couldn't breathe. You killed her. Your world killed her. She died because of you. I know. Victor's face was stone, but his eyes betrayed him. I've lived with that guilt every day for 7 years. I never knew. He stopped, collecting himself. Did she ever tell you she was pregnant? The room spun. Clara grabbed the wall for support. What? Did she tell you she was pregnant before she died?
No.
No, Clara's mind raced. She just showed up at my door one day with a baby. Said the father was gone. Said she needed help. I took them in. I didn't ask questions because Lucia looked so scared, so desperate. And then 6 months later, the explosion. She never said who the father was. Never. I assumed it was some guy who'd abandoned her. Clara's voice rose. Are you telling me, are you saying? I'm saying I need to know if Leo is my son. Clara's hand flew up, slapping Victor across the face. Hard. The sound cracked through the empty room. Marco burst through the door, gun drawn. Victor held up a hand, stopping him. It's fine. Leave us. Marco hesitated, then retreated. Clara was shaking with fury and fear, and something she couldn't name. You don't get to claim him. You don't get to walk into our lives and… I already ran a DNA test. Victor's voice was quiet. Dr. Chun took a sample during Leo's intake exam. The results came back an hour ago. Clara's legs gave out. She sank against the wall.
No.
He's mine, Clara. Leo is my son.
No. No.
Lucia kept him away from you, for a reason. She knew what you were, what you are. She died protecting him from your world. I know. Victor moved closer, kneeling down to her eye level. And I've spent the last hour trying to figure out what the hell I'm supposed to do with that information. Because, you're right. My world is poison. It's violence and death and corruption. Everything Lucia hated. Everything that killed her. So leave us alone. Tears streamed down Clara's face. Just pay for the surgery and disappear. Let Leo grow up normal. Safe. I can't. Victor's voice broke. I didn't know he existed until today. But now that I do, now that I've seen his face, seen him suffering, I can't walk away. He's my son, Clara. My only child. The only piece of Lucia I have left. You don't have any piece of her. You gave that up when you chose this life over her. The words hit Victor like bullets. Clara could see it in his eyes. But he didn't flinch. Didn't argue. You're right, he said simply. I made my choice 7 years ago. And Lucia paid for it with her life. But Leo shouldn't have to pay for my mistakes. He deserves a chance. A real chance. He has one. The surgery tomorrow. What about after? Victor stood, pacing now. What happens when he recovers? You go back to your 3 jobs? Back to that apartment? What if he needs more care? More medicine? What if something else goes wrong? I'll handle it. I've handled it this far. By stealing from mobsters? Victor's tone wasn't cruel, just factual. You are desperate enough to risk your life for that wallet. How long until you're desperate again? How long until you make a mistake that gets you killed? And then what happens to Leo? Clara had no answer. Because he was right. She was drowning. She'd been drowning for years. Let me help, Victor said softly. Not as a mobster. As his father. I can give him everything he needs. Security. Education. Healthcare. A future. In exchange for what? You want custody? Visitation rights? You want to turn him into what? A mafia prince? No, Victor's voice was firm. I want to keep him safe. That's all. I don't need him to know who I am. I don't need to be in his life, publicly. But I can protect him from the shadows. Make sure he never wants for anything. Make sure no one ever touches him. Clara looked up at this man, this dangerous, powerful man who'd loved her sister, who'd unknowingly fathered her nephew, who'd gotten Lucia killed. She should hate him. She did hate him. But she also saw something in his eyes she recognized. The same desperate love she felt every time she looked at Leo. The same willingness to do anything legal or not to keep him safe. If I agree to this, Clara said slowly, there are rules. Leo never knows who you are. He never enters your world. And if I ever think he's in danger because of you, I disappear with him. Forever.
Victor nodded.
Agreed. And you don't get to make decisions about his life. I'm his mother. I raised him. You might be his biological father, but I'm his parent. I understand. Clara stood on shaky legs. Then help us. But from a distance. Be the anonymous benefactor. Nothing more. That's all I want. They stood in that empty hospital room, 2 people bound by a dead woman and a sick child, making an impossible bargain. The surgery is at 8 a.m., Clara said. If you want to be there, watching from wherever you watch from, I won't stop you. Thank you. Clara walked to the door, then paused.
Victor?
Did you really love her? My sister? More than anything, his voice was raw with truth. She was the only good thing in my life. And I destroyed her. Clara nodded slowly. Good. I'm glad you suffer. You should. She left him standing there, alone in the darkness. The surgery took 6 hours. Clara sat in the waiting room, her hands clasped so tight her knuckles turned white. Dr. Chun had explained the risks, complications, rejection, heart failure. 20% chance Leo wouldn't make it off the table. Clara prayed to a god she wasn't sure she believed in anymore. At hour 4, she felt a presence beside her. Victor sat down, 2 seats away. Not close enough to invade her space, but close enough that she knew he was there. You shouldn't be here, Clara said without looking at him. I know. They sat in silence. Two strangers bound by blood and grief. She talked about you, Clara said finally. Lucia. Not by name, but I knew. She'd come over sometimes late at night, and she'd be glowing. Happy in a way I'd never seen her before. She said she'd met someone who made her feel alive, who saw past the surface to who she really was. Victor's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Then it changed. She got scared. Said her boyfriend was involved in things she couldn't ignore anymore. Said she had to make a choice, love him as he was or walk away. Clara's voice cracked. She chose to walk away. And then she found out she was pregnant. Why didn't she tell me? Victor's voice was barely a whisper. Because she knew you'd try to protect them. And your protection comes with a price tag written in blood. Clara finally looked at him. She didn't want that life for Leo. She didn't want him growing up with guards and guns and looking over his shoulder. She wanted him to be normal, free. Instead, he grew up poor and sick, but alive. And innocent. Clara's eyes blazed. Can you say the same about anyone else in your world? Before Victor could answer, Dr. Chin emerged from the surgical wing. Her face was exhausted but smiling. He made it through. The repair was successful. Clara collapsed forward, sobbing with relief. Victor's hand went to his chest, his eyes closing briefly. He'll need weeks of recovery, Dr. Chin continued, and careful monitoring. But if all goes well, he should be able to live a normal life. Play sports. Go to school. Be a regular kid. Can I see him? Clara asked. He's in recovery, still sedated, but in a few hours, yes. After Dr. Chin left, Clara stood on shaking legs. Victor stood too, maintaining that careful distance. Thank you, Clara said, for getting us Dr. Chin. For making this happen. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. Even if I hate you for what happened to Lucia, you saved Leo's life today. She paused. But this doesn't change anything. Our agreement stands. You stay away from him.
Victor nodded.
There's something else you need to know. Something I discovered while looking into your background. Clara tensed. What? The car bomb that killed Lucia. I told you it was meant for me. That's true. But what I didn't know until yesterday was who ordered it. Victor's expression darkened. It wasn't my rivals. It was my own organization. My right-hand man, Marco. The floor seemed to drop beneath Clara's feet. What? 7 years ago, Marco was working a side deal. Skimming money, building his own power base. Lucia saw something she shouldn't have. Paperwork, a meeting. I'm still not sure what. Marco found out she knew. He ordered the hit without my knowledge, made it look like it came from the Castellano family. Clara's hands balled into fists. The man who's been with you all day? The one standing outside right now. I didn't know, Victor said, his voice cold as ice. I've spent 7 years blaming myself, blaming my enemies. But it was Marco. He killed Lucia to protect his secrets. And he's been beside me ever since, letting me carry the guilt. Then why is he still breathing? Clara's voice was venomous. Because I only confirmed it an hour ago. I've been having him investigated since yesterday, since I realized the connection to Lucia. The evidence came through while you were in the waiting room. Victor's eyes were dead, empty. He's useful to me, has connections, knows too much to eliminate carelessly. But more importantly, I wanted you to know the truth before I dealt with him. Why would I need to know? Because he's a threat to Leo. Victor moved closer, his voice urgent. If Marco finds out Leo is my son, he'll use it against me. Or worse, he'll eliminate the threat before it becomes leverage. Clara's blood ran cold. You're saying my nephew is in danger because your bodyguard killed my sister and might kill him too. I'm saying I need to handle Marco carefully. Tonight. Before he figures out why I'm really here, Victor pulled out his phone, showing her a photo. This is Marcus Santos, ex-Special Forces. He'll be posted outside Leo's room starting now. He's loyal only to me, and he doesn't know Marco. Trust no one else. Not the regular security. Not hospital staff you don't recognize. Only Marcus. Clara looked at the photo, a hard-faced man with alert eyes. This was insane. Her nephew had just survived heart surgery, and now she was being told he needed protection from a mobster's betrayal. I want out, Clara said desperately. I want to take Leo and disappear. New city. New names. Away from all of this. You can't run from Marco. He has resources, connections across the country. If I eliminate him, his allies will come looking for answers. They'll find you. Victor's voice was firm. The only way to keep Leo safe is to deal with Marco properly. Make it look like an accident or a business decision. Then clean house. Remove anyone else who might connect Leo to me. How long will that take?
Days.
Maybe a week. Victor's expression softened slightly. I need you to trust me. Just for a little while. Trust you? The man whose world killed my sister?
No.
Trust Leo's father, who just found out he has a son and will burn down everything he's built to keep that boy safe. Clara studied his face. Behind the cold Mafia boss exterior, she saw genuine fear. Not for himself, for Leo. The same fear that had driven her to steal the wallet. The same desperate love that made parents do impossible things. 1 week, Clara said. You handle Marco and anyone else who's a threat. Then you disappear from our lives. You can send money, pay for school, do whatever from a distance. But you don't contact us. You don't visit. You're a ghost. Agreed. And if anything happens to Leo because of you, it won't. Victor's voice was steel. I promise you, Clara. On Lucia's memory. Nothing will happen to him. Before Clara could respond, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number, a photo of her apartment building. Then another message. Interesting place for a thief to live. Even more interesting that Victor Morelli is protecting her. Clara's hands shook as she showed Victor the phone. His face went dark.
Marco.
He's already making his move. What does this mean? It means he knows. About you, about Leo, probably about everything. Victor was already texting rapidly on his own phone. He's forcing my hand. He wants me to know he can reach you anytime. Oh God. Marcus.
Victor Boyert.
The hard-faced man appeared instantly. Take Clara and the boy. There's a safe house in Westchester.
Move them now.
Don't stop. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Wait, Leo just had surgery. He can't be moved. Dr. Chen. Victor's voice cut through the hallway. When the doctor appeared, looking startled, Victor spoke quickly. The boy needs to be transported. What do you need to make that happen safely? Dr. Chen looked between them, clearly sensing the danger. He's stable enough for transport if we're careful. I'd need to send a nurse. Portable monitors.
Do it.
You have 15 minutes. Victor turned back to Clara, gripping her shoulders. I'm going to end this. Tonight. Marco won't see tomorrow. But until then, you and Leo need to disappear. Clara wanted to argue, to fight, to demand answers. But one look at Victor's face told her everything. They were out of time. The hunt had begun, and Leo was the prey. The hospital parking garage was cold and nearly empty at 2 a.m. Victor stood by his car while Marcus coordinated Leo's transport with Dr. Chen. Clara paced nearby, her phone clutched in her hand, terrified and furious in equal measure. Then Victor's phone rang.
Marco.
Boss. We need to talk. Victor's voice was ice. Where are you? Parking garage. Level 3. I thought we should have a conversation. Just the two of us. The line went dead. Victor turned to Marcus. Change of plans. Get Clara and the boy out through the emergency exit. North side.
Now.
Boss, if Marco's here. That's why you're leaving now. Victor pulled his gun, checking the chamber. Go. Clara grabbed his arm.
Wait.
If he's here, if he knows, you can't just walk into a trap. I'm not walking into anything. I'm ending it. Victor's gray eyes met hers. Take care of Leo. Tell him. He stopped himself. Just take care of him. Before Clara could protest, Marcus was pulling her away toward the emergency stairs. She looked back once and saw Victor walking calmly toward the elevators, a man heading to his own execution or someone else's. Level 3 was darker than the others. Half the lights were out. Victor's footsteps echoed on concrete as he walked through rows of parked cars. His hand rested on his gun, every sense alert.
Marco.
Show yourself. Marco stepped out from behind a pillar, gun already drawn. But he wasn't alone. 4 other men emerged from the shadows: Carlo, Dimitri, and 2 others from Victor's inner circle. Victor's jaw tightened. Marco hadn't just betrayed him. He'd turned half his organization. "I'm disappointed, Victor," Marco said, his voice carrying across the empty space. 7 years I've been by your side. 7 years I protected you, built this empire with you. And you were going to throw it all away for what? A dead woman's bastard? He's my son. He's a liability." Marco's voice rose. "The moment people know you have a son, everything changes. Every enemy sees a target. Every rival sees weakness. You taught me that. You said family makes you vulnerable. I was wrong." Marco laughed, the sound echoing off concrete walls. "Wrong?
No, boss.
You were right. You just forgot your own lessons because you saw Lucia's eyes in that kid's face." He took a step closer, gun steady. "She made you soft back then too. I had to take care of her before she ruined everything. And now history's repeating itself." Victor's voice was deadly quiet. "You admit it. You killed Lucia. I saved your empire. She was going to expose us, turn you into some civilian. I saw the way you looked at her, like she was redemption or some bullshit. You would have walked away from everything we built." Marco's expression hardened. "I did what you were too weak to do. You murdered an innocent woman. A pregnant woman. I eliminated a threat." Marco's gun raised slightly. "And I'm about to eliminate 2 more. The sister and the kid. They die tonight, Victor. Then we go back to business. You'll thank me in a year." Victor's hand moved to his gun, but Carlo and Dimitri already had theirs trained on him. 5 guns against 1. Marco had planned this carefully. "You really think you can kill me?" Victor asked calmly. "Kill me and what? Take over? You don't have the connections. The families won't respect you. You'll be dead in a month." "I don't need to kill you," Marco smiled. "I need you to make a choice. Your empire or the kid. Because you can't have both. If you keep the boy in your life, I walk away, and I take half your organization with me. We go to war. And in that war, the kid becomes a target for everyone. My people, your enemies, the cops who'll use him to get to you. Or," Victor's voice was steel, "or you let me handle the situation. The sister and the boy disappear.
Tragique accident.
Gas leak maybe. You mourn privately and we continue like none of this happened. You keep your empire intact. I keep my position. Everyone wins. Except my son. He was never really yours anyway." Marco's tone was almost sympathetic. "You didn't raise him. You didn't know him. He's just a ghost of a woman you couldn't save. Let him go, Victor. Choose the empire." For a long moment, silence filled the parking garage. Victor stood perfectly still, 5 guns pointed at him, Marco's ultimatum hanging in the air. Then Victor smiled. Cold and dangerous. "You made one mistake, Marco." "What's that?" "You assumed I came here alone." The gunshot came from above. A sniper's bullet caught Carlo in the shoulder, spinning him around. Dimitri dove for cover as more shots rang out from the upper levels, Marcus's backup team, positioned before Victor ever entered the garage. Chaos erupted. Marco's men scrambled for cover, returning fire at targets they couldn't see. Victor moved like lightning, his gun up, firing twice. One of Marco's men went down. But Marco was already running, using the confusion to bolt for the exit stairs. Victor chased him, his dress shoes pounding on concrete. They crashed through the stairwell door, Marco firing blind behind him. A bullet sparked off the metal railing inches from Victor's head. They burst out onto level 1, near the emergency exit. Marco spun around, gun raised, and Victor did the same. They stood 15 feet apart, both breathing hard, both with fingers on triggers. You don't want to do this, Marco said. 7 years, Victor. We're brothers. Brothers don't kill innocent women. Brothers don't threaten children. That child is going to destroy you. Just like Lucia would have. Then I'll be destroyed. Victor's aim never wavered. But he lives. That's not negotiable. Then you've chosen. Marco's finger tightened on the trigger. 2 shots rang out simultaneously. Marco stumbled backward, a red bloom spreading across his chest. He looked down in surprise, then up at Victor, who stood unharmed.
A miss.
In 7 years, Marco had never missed. But fear made people sloppy. Marco collapsed against a car, sliding down to sit on the cold concrete. Blood pooled beneath him. Victor walked over slowly, gun still raised. He looked down at the man who'd been his right hand, his friend, his brother in all but blood. The man who'd murdered Lucia. You were right about one thing, Victor said quietly. Family makes you vulnerable. But it also makes you stronger than you've ever been. Because when you have something real to protect, you don't hesitate. You don't miss. Marco coughed, blood on his lips. The others. They'll still come for him. Let them try. Victor's voice was cold certainty. I'll bury anyone who touches my son. Marco's eyes glazed over. His last breath rattled out into the empty garage. Victor stood there for a long moment, looking at the body of the man who'd shaped his empire and destroyed his chance at redemption 7 years ago. Then he pulled out his phone. It's done. Bring them back. Boss, you sure that's wise? Marcus's voice crackled through. There's still cleanup. Bring them back.
Now.
Victor walked out of the parking garage into the cold night air. Behind him, his men were already moving into position, making Marco's death look like gang violence, tying up loose ends. The empire was secure. The threat was eliminated. But as Victor stood under the flickering streetlight, he felt no victory, just exhaustion, and the weight of one more body added to the count, one more sin that could never be forgiven. A black SUV pulled up. Marcus got out, then opened the back door. Clara emerged, her eyes immediately finding Victor, searching for blood, for injury, for confirmation that he was still standing. It's over, Victor said simply.
Marco's dead.
The others scattered. You're safe. Clara's knees buckled with relief. Marcus caught her arm, steadying her. And Leo? Victor asked. Still sedated. Dr. Chin says the transport didn't affect him. He's stable.
Victor nodded slowly.
Then, for the first time since discovering he was a father, he asked the question that terrified him most. Can I see him? Clara looked at this man, this killer, this monster, this father, and saw something she'd never expected to see. Vulnerability. Real, raw, human vulnerability. 5 minutes, she said quietly. That's all. The safe house was 2 hours north of the city, hidden in the Westchester countryside. A sprawling estate surrounded by woods, with security cameras disguised as birdhouses and guards patrolling the perimeter. Clara had watched the city lights disappear in the rearview mirror, replaced by darkness and trees. Leo slept in a bedroom that was bigger than their entire Brooklyn apartment. Medical equipment beeped softly by his bed. A private nurse monitored his vitals. Clara sat in a chair beside him, too wired to sleep despite the exhaustion pulling at her bones. It was almost dawn when Victor arrived. She heard his car on the gravel driveway, heard the murmur of voices as he spoke with the guards. Then footsteps in the hallway. He appeared in the doorway, still wearing the same clothes from the parking garage. There was blood on his sleeve, not his own. He looked at Leo sleeping peacefully, and something cracked in his expression. Come on, Clara said quietly, standing. Let's talk outside. The nurse will stay with him. They walked through the house in silence. It was furnished but impersonal, a place for hiding, not living. Clara found a study with large windows overlooking the dark woods. She closed the door behind them. Sit down before you fall down, she said. Victor sank into a leather chair. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked his age. Tired. Human. Clara poured 2 glasses of whiskey from a decanter on the desk, handing him one. I don't even like whiskey, but I think we both need it. They drank in silence. Thank you, Clara finally said.
For protecting him.
For ending it. Don't thank me for killing people. I'm not. I'm thanking you for keeping my nephew alive, she paused. Your son alive. Victor flinched at the word son. I stood there for 5 minutes, watching him sleep.
I didn't know what to say.
What to feel. I've built an empire. Controlled thousands of people. Faced down men who wanted me dead. And I couldn't figure out how to talk to an unconscious 8-year-old. He looks like you, Clara said softly. I see it now. The eyes. The stubborn chin. Lucia used to joke that he had a serious face, even as a baby. Now I know where he got it. Victor pulled out his wallet, extracting the photo of Lucia. She was standing in Washington Square Park when I took this. It was spring. She just told me about a book she was reading, some philosophy thing I pretended to understand. She was so alive. So bright, his voice roughened. I would have given up everything for her, if she'd just asked one more time. But she didn't ask. She walked away. Because she knew I'd never actually do it. Leave the life, I mean. I'd say I would, convince myself I could, but when it came down to it, Victor shook his head. She was smarter than me. She knew I'd choose the empire. So she chose for both of us. She chose Leo. Clara studied him. You really loved her. More than I've loved anything. Before or since, he looked directly at Clara. When I saw your face at that gala, for just a second I thought he stopped. It doesn't matter what I thought. You thought she'd come back somehow. That's why you helped us. Not just because of Leo. Because I reminded you of her. Victor didn't deny it. You have her courage. That desperate bravery that makes you do insane things to protect the people you love. She stole my heart. You stole my wallet, a ghost of a smile. Apparently it runs in the family. Despite everything, Clara almost laughed. So, what happens now? You've eliminated the immediate threat. But you said it yourself, if people know Leo exists, he becomes a target. Your enemies, your rivals, everyone. Which is why no one can know. Victor set down his glass. The DNA test I ran was done privately. The doctor who processed it is on my payroll and extremely loyal. Marcus doesn't know Leo's connection to me. He just knows to protect you both. Dr. Chin thinks I'm helping you out of charity. Marco's dead, and the few men who might have suspected are being reassigned to less sensitive positions. You're covering it up. Erasing the connection. I'm protecting him the only way I know how. Victor leaned forward. Here's what I'm proposing. You and Leo stay here for 2 weeks, until he's strong enough to travel. Then I relocate you. New city. New identities. Clean background, good schools, a trust fund that pays out monthly but can't be traced back to me. You become Clara Martinez, or whatever name you choose. Leo grows up normal, safe, free. And you? I stay in New York. Run my empire. And every month, Marcus, who will be your primary security contact, sends me a report. Photos, school grades, doctor's appointments. I watch from a distance. A ghost, like you said. Clara's throat tightened. Leo will ask questions eventually. About who's paying for everything. About why we suddenly have money. Tell him the truth. Tell him his mother had a life insurance policy you didn't know about. Tell him anything except who I am. Victor's voice was firm. He can never know about me, Clara. Because if he knows, he might want to find me. And if he finds me, he enters this world. I won't let that happen. But you're his father. Don't you want? What I want doesn't matter. Victor stood, walking to the window. Dawn was breaking over the trees, soft pink light touching the shadows. I want to teach him to throw a baseball. I want to help with homework and scare off bullies and walk him down the aisle someday. I want everything normal fathers get. Then why? Because normal fathers don't have enemies who bomb cars. Normal fathers don't run criminal empires. Normal fathers don't have blood on their hands. Victor turned to face her. Lucia died because of me. I won't let Leo die too. Even if it means he never knows I exist. The pain in his voice was so raw that Clara had to look away. She thought about Lucia's final months, the fear in her eyes, the way she'd constantly check the windows, jump at unexpected sounds. Lucia had known what Victor's world meant. She'd chosen to protect Leo from it, even if it meant raising him alone. Now Clara had to make the same choice. Okay, she said quietly. We disappear. New city, new names. You stay away. But she held up a hand as Victor started to speak. If Leo ever asks about his father, if he's old enough and mature enough to handle the truth, I get to decide whether to tell him.
Not you.
Me. Victor was silent for a long moment. And if you decide to tell him, then I'll deal with the consequences. But until that day, if it ever comes, you're a ghost. Agreed. Clara walked to the door, then paused.
Victor?
The flash drive you were so worried about. What was on it? Evidence. Against everyone I've ever done business with. Politicians, judges, businessmen. Enough to bring down half the city's power structure. What did you do with it? Victor pulled the small silver drive from his pocket, holding it up to the morning light. I'm going to destroy it. Every file, every piece of evidence. It was insurance, but insurance has costs. As long as it exists, someone could find it, use it, hurt the people connected to it. You're giving up your protection? Your leverage? I'm choosing my son over my empire. Victor's voice was steady. The drive disappears. The accounts get closed. The connections get severed. My organization gets smaller, cleaner. I'll lose power, lose influence. Some of my allies will turn on me. But Leo will be safe. No one can connect him to any of this. Clara saw the weight of that decision in his eyes. He was dismantling everything he'd built. Everything his father had started. Everything he'd killed for. All for a child he'd never really know. Lucia would be proud of you, Clara said softly. Finally choosing right over easy. Lucia would still be alive if I'd made this choice 7 years ago. Maybe. Or maybe this is exactly how it was supposed to happen. Leo needed someone to raise him who knew love more than power. Someone who'd work 3 jobs and steal from mobsters to save him. Clara managed a small smile. He needed me. And now he needs you to let him go.
Victor nodded slowly.
Take care of him, Clara. Give him the life Lucia wanted. The life I can never give him. I will. I promise. She left him standing in that study, the flash drive in his hand, watching the sunrise over a life he was choosing to leave behind. In the bedroom, Leo stirred, his eyes fluttering open. Aunt Clara? I'm here, baby. Clara sat beside him, smoothing his hair. How do you feel? Tired. But better. He looked around the unfamiliar room. Where are we? Somewhere safe. Somewhere new. Clara kissed his forehead. What would you think about a fresh start? New city, new adventure. Just you and me. Leo's eyes lit up despite his exhaustion. Really? Like starting over. Exactly like that. Can we go somewhere with a beach? I've never seen the ocean. Clara's heart broke and healed at the same time. Yeah, baby. We can go somewhere with a beach. She didn't tell him that his father was 3 rooms away, making arrangements for a life he'd never be part of. She didn't tell him about the empire being dismantled, the enemies being neutralized, the blood spilled to keep him safe. She just held his hand and promised him the ocean. And in the study, Victor crushed the flash drive under his heel, grinding it into pieces on the hardwood floor. Some debts, he thought, are paid in silence. 3 days later, Victor stood in his penthouse office for what might be the last time. The view was the same, Manhattan sprawling before him like a kingdom. But the kingdom was crumbling by his own hand. His lawyer, Richard Castellano, sat across the desk with files spread between them. Victor, I have to say this one more time. What you're doing is financial suicide. You're dissolving corporations worth millions. Cutting ties with partners who've been loyal for decades. Destroying evidence that protects you from federal prosecution.
I'm aware.
You'll lose everything. The shipping companies, the construction firms, the real estate holdings. Half of it was built on those connections you're severing. Without the leverage from that flash drive, your enemies will move in. The Moretti Empire will be gone in a year. Good. Victor signed another document, severing his ties to a shell corporation in the Caymans. That's the point. Richard leaned back, studying him. This is about the woman and the kid, isn't it? The ones at the safe house. Victor's pen paused. That's none of your concern. It is when my client is committing professional suicide. Victor, I've known you 15 years. You're the most ruthless, calculating man I've ever met. You don't make emotional decisions. So what changed? Victor set down the pen. I had a son I didn't know about. His mother died because of my world. He almost died because his aunt couldn't afford his surgery. I've spent 7 years building an empire on blood and corruption. And for what? So I could watch my child grow up from a distance, always afraid someone will hurt him to get to me. So you're dismantling everything? I'm removing the target from his back. Every dirty politician, every corrupt cop, every compromised judge, they all become liabilities if that flash drive exists. Someone could use it to trace connections to me, and eventually to him. Victor resumed signing. I'd rather lose my empire than risk his life. Richard was quiet for a moment. The feds are going to notice. When all these accounts close, when these partnerships dissolve, they'll investigate. Let them. They'll find legitimate businesses shutting down for legitimate reasons. Economic downturns. Strategic restructuring. By the time they figure out there was anything more, the trail will be cold. And your partners? The people who'll lose money when these businesses fold will be compensated from my personal accounts. It'll bankrupt me, but they'll get what they're owed. Victor signed the last document. I'm not leaving enemies behind.
Just
walking away. Richard gathered the files. Where will you go after this is done? Nowhere. I'll stay in New York. Smaller operations, legitimate businesses only. No more politics, no more schemes. I'll be what I should have been from the beginning. Just another businessman. That's a fairy tale. You can't just walk away from this life. Watch me, Victor stood, walking to the window. Make sure those transfers go through by tomorrow. I want Clara and Leo relocated by the end of the week. After Richard left, Marco's replacement, a man named Vincent, entered with a tablet. Boss, we've got a situation. 3 of Marco's former associates were picked up by the FBI this morning. They're being offered deals. What do they know? About Marco's side operations, his skimming. Maybe about the offshore accounts. But Vincent hesitated. One of them knows about Lucia. The old relationship. If they start talking about her, if they mention she had a kid, then what? They connect dots that lead to a dead woman and a child I have no legal relationship to. Victor's voice was calm. Let them talk. There's no paper trail. No DNA on record anywhere but a private lab that just had a convenient fire. No evidence of any connection. Vincent looked impressed despite himself. You're erasing yourself from their lives. Completely. By Friday, Clara and Leo will be Clara and Leo Martinez, living in San Diego. New social security numbers, new birth certificates, new history. A tragic backstory about an abusive ex-husband they fled from, complete with restraining orders that explain why they left New York. Victor pulled up a file on his phone. She'll work as a hospital administrator. Leo will attend a private school on a scholarship from a nonprofit that I don't officially control. They'll have a house near the beach. Normal lives. And you. I'll have monthly reports. Photos from a distance. That's all. That's not enough. For a father, that's not nearly enough. Victor's jaw tightened. It has to be. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Kid's asking about you. Says he wants to thank the man who helped his aunt. Victor's chest constricted. Leo was awake, recovering, getting stronger. And he wanted to say thank you. A simple gesture that meant everything and nothing. Victor typed back. Tell him it was my pleasure. Tell him to take care of his aunt. Tell him. He deleted the message. Started again. Tell him nothing. I was never there.
He hit send.
That evening, Victor visited the safe house one last time. He didn't go inside. Just sat in his car at the edge of the property, watching through the windows. He could see Clara in the kitchen making dinner. See Leo on the couch, looking pale but animated, talking about something that made Clara laugh. A normal family moment. The kind Victor would never have with them. Marcus appeared at the car window, tapping gently. Victor rolled it down. They're ready to move on Friday. Everything's arranged. San Diego PD has been briefed about the abusive ex situation. They'll keep an eye out, make sure the family feels protected. Marcus paused. Clara wants to say goodbye. She thinks you deserve that. No, Victor's voice was firm. Clean break. It's better this way. Boss, with respect, you're making a massive sacrifice for people who'll never know the full extent of it. Don't you want some acknowledgement? Some closure? Victor watched Clara ruffle Leo's hair, watched the boy grin up at her. I don't deserve closure. I deserve exactly what I'm getting. A life spent knowing I did one thing right, even if no one knows I did it. That's a lonely way to live. I've been lonely for 7 years.
This is just.
More honest about it. Marcus nodded slowly. The reports will come through me. Monthly updates, photos from a distance. Nothing that could be traced back to you.
Good.
And Marcus? After you get them settled, I want you to stay in San Diego.
Permanent assignement.
Watch over them. Different surveillance teams rotating so nothing looks suspicious, but you're the constant. If anything, and I mean anything, threatens them, you handle it. And if I need backup, you'll have unlimited resources. Whatever it takes to keep them safe. Victor's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. That boy is my legacy. Not this empire, not the Moretti name. Him. You protect him like your life depends on it. Because it does. Understood, boss. Victor started the car. I'll wire the funds for their new life by morning. 20 million in the trust, paid out monthly. Enough for schools, emergencies, whatever they need. It's completely untraceable. That's nearly everything you have left after the buyouts. I know. Victor took one last look at the house, at the family he'd never really have. It's worth it. He drove away as the sun set behind the trees, leaving behind a life he could have had in another world, another timeline where he'd made different choices 7 years ago. By Friday morning, Clara and Leo were on a plane to San Diego. New names, new life, new future. The Moretti empire began its collapse, businesses folding, partnerships dissolving, power structures crumbling. Victor's name faded from the headlines. His influence waned. His enemies circled, but found nothing to attack. He became a ghost in his own city. And in San Diego, a boy with his father's eyes laughed at the ocean for the first time, having no idea that across the country, a man he'd never know was watching over him with a devotion that bordered on worship. Some debts are paid in silence. Some loves are proved in letting go. 6 months later, San Diego, California. Clara stood on the back deck of their small house, watching Leo play in the yard. 6 months post-surgery, and he was a different child. Color in his cheeks. Energy in his movements. He was kicking a soccer ball against the fence, something that would have been impossible a year ago. The house was modest but perfect. 3 bedrooms, a yard with lemon trees, close enough to the beach that they could hear the waves at night. Clara had a job at a children's hospital doing administrative work. The pay was good, the hours reasonable. Leo attended a private school where he'd made friends, joined the soccer team, discovered a love for science. They were happy, genuinely, impossibly happy. But Clara thought about Victor every day. She'd kept her promise. Leo didn't know about his father. As far as the boy knew, his mother had died in an accident, his father had never been in the picture, and his aunt had raised him alone until a mysterious life insurance policy had finally paid out, changing their lives. Leo never questioned it.
8-year-olds rarely did.
And Clara, watch this. Leo kicked the ball high, catching it on his chest like he'd seen the professionals do. Beautiful, Clara called back, clapping. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Package arriving today. Birthday gift. Clara's heart skipped. It was Leo's 9th birthday tomorrow. This would be the second anonymous gift since they'd moved. The first had been a telescope that arrived at Christmas, expensive, professional grade, with a note that said only, for watching the stars. Leo had been obsessed with it, spending hours on the deck mapping constellations. He'd never known it came from his father. The doorbell rang that afternoon. A delivery driver stood with a large box, no return address. "Sign here, ma'am." After he left, Clara opened the box carefully. Inside was a top-of-the-line bicycle, the exact model Leo had mentioned wanting after seeing his friend's bike at school. Deep blue with silver accents. A helmet included. And tucked in the packaging, a small envelope. Clara opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a silver coin, old and worn, engraved with a family crest, the Moretti family crest. And beneath it, a handwritten note in Victor's precise script. For his 9th year, may he ride faster than I ever could toward a better life. A friend. Clara held the coin, tears blurring her vision. This was Victor's way, silent gifts, anonymous gestures, watching from 3,000 miles away. She'd received the monthly reports Marcus sent him. She'd found out about that arrangement through a carefully worded conversation. Photos of Leo at school, report cards, doctor's appointments. Victor knew everything and nothing. He knew Leo's favorite subject was science. But he'd never hear Leo explain his volcano project. He knew Leo had made the soccer team, but he'd never watch him play. He knew Leo was thriving, but he'd never hold him. It was the cruelest kind of love, complete and utterly self-sacrificing. That night, New York City. Victor sat in his apartment, much smaller than the penthouse, in a quieter neighborhood. The Moretti empire was gone. He owned 3 legitimate businesses now, a restaurant, a bookstore, and a small construction company. Nothing glamorous. Nothing that attracted attention. He'd lost 90% of his wealth. Most of his former associates had drifted away or turned hostile when the power evaporated. The FBI had investigated, found nothing actionable, and moved on to bigger targets. Victor Morelli had become unremarkable, invisible, exactly what he'd intended. His phone lit up with Marcus's monthly report. He opened it like he always did, with hands that trembled slightly, an eagerness he couldn't suppress. Photos. Leo blowing out 9 candles on a birthday cake. Leo with his new bike, grinning like Christmas morning. Leo at a soccer game, mid-kick, completely focused. Leo reading a book on marine biology, his father's serious expression on his young face. And one photo that made Victor's breath catch. Leo standing on the beach at sunset, arms spread wide, face tilted toward the sky in pure joy. Victor stared at that photo for a long time.
His son. Happy.
Healthy.
Free.
Everything he'd given up his empire for, captured in a single image.
His phone rang.
Marcus. "Boss, sorry, Victor." Marcus still struggled with the transition. "Just wanted to confirm the bike arrived." "The kid loves it. Rode it for 3 hours straight." "Good." Victor's voice was rough. "And he's doing well?" "Really? He's thriving. Straight A's, lots of friends, no health issues since the surgery." Clara's happy too. She met someone actually. Teacher at Leo's school. Nothing serious yet, but it's nice seeing her smile. Victor's chest tightened. Clara deserved happiness. Deserved someone who could be present, be real, be there in the daylight instead of the shadows. "That's good," he managed. "She deserves that." "What about you, Victor? You deserve something too." "I have what I need." After the call ended, Victor walked to his window. The city stretched before him, smaller from this viewpoint, but still familiar. Still home. He'd lost his empire, but gained something more valuable, the knowledge that somewhere in California, his son was living the life Lucia had dreamed of. Safe. Normal. Untouched by the violence and corruption that had defined Victor's world. Some men built kingdoms. Some men conquered cities. Victor had done both and found them worthless compared to a single photo of a boy on a beach, arms spread wide, embracing a future his father would never share. His phone buzzed once more. Another message from the unknown number, Clara's burner phone. He loves the bike. Thank you for this and everything. Lucia would be proud of who you've become. Victor stared at those words until they blurred. Lucia would be proud. Maybe. Or maybe she'd say he was 7 years too late. Either way, he'd never know. He typed back. Tell him happy birthday from a friend. Tell him to ride safe. Tell him. He deleted it. Started again. You're welcome. Keep him safe. He hit send, then added the number to his blocked list. Clean break. No more communication. It was too tempting, too dangerous to maintain even this thread of connection. In San Diego, Clara read the message, understanding flooding through her. This was Victor's final goodbye. His last word before disappearing completely into the silence he'd chosen. She whispered to the phone, to the ghost of a man 3,000 miles away. Thank you for loving him enough to let him go. 1 year later, San Diego Beach. Leo, now 10, ran along the shoreline with his friends, his laughter carrying on the ocean breeze. Clara sat on a blanket, watching him, her heart full in a way she'd never thought possible after losing Lucia. She pulled out her wallet, looking at the old photo of her sister. Then she pulled out something else, the silver coin with the Moretti crest. She'd kept it hidden, a secret reminder of the sacrifice that had given them this life. Someday, when Leo was older, 18, maybe 20, she'd tell him the truth. About Victor. About the empire dismantled. About a father who'd loved him enough to become a stranger. But not today. Today, Leo was just a boy playing on a beach, his biggest worry whether he'd make the advanced soccer team next year. And 3,000 miles away, Victor Moretti sat in a small bookstore he now owned, arranging books and helping customers, living a quiet life that would have bewildered the man he'd been a year ago. On his desk, visible only to him, was a single photo, Leo at 9, arms spread wide on a beach, embracing a future his father had bought with everything he'd ever built. It was enough. It had to be enough. Victor picked up the photo, pressed it to his heart for just a moment, then locked it away in a drawer. Some loves are proven not in presence, but in absence. Some fathers protect their children not by staying close, but by staying away. And some men find redemption not in what they gain, but in what they willingly lose. Victor Morelli had once owned a city. Now he owned nothing but the knowledge that somewhere under the California sun, his son was free. And in the arithmetic of love and sacrifice that made him the richest man alive. He smiled, a real smile, rare and genuine, and returned to his quiet life, carrying a secret that would die with him. Because some stories end not with reunion, but with letting go. And sometimes, that's the happiest ending of all. The end.